what was so interesting, I think, in terms of the subject matter of these films, is that I think for a long time I've seen quite a few Singapore short films, and I was mentioning in the 90s, a lot of them were like underbelly cinema. So you had gangsters and prostitutes, and you had people like Eric Khoo doing 12 stories, and there was this anxiety to show that maybe Singapore had its darker, seamier sides, yeah, because the global image of Singapore was so sterile and clean, etc. And then I think there was a memorializing kind of cinema, maybe 2000 onwards, where there's a sense that, okay, what we put on film is also a little bit of documentary, because so many places in Singapore are vanishing, so we need to sort of like capture these spaces. So, kind of cinema memory, Royston Tan, old places, etc. Yeah, and then I see works by you guys, and it's I think the idea of the other. I think I was very excited by the idea that introspection is good. We're always looking at ourselves and identity politics, what it means to be Singaporean. But I think sometimes you get too introspective, and it becomes a little narcissistic. So I was very heartened to see that, you have films tonight that is looking at migrant workers and as well as refugees. So maybe my first question, were you working with non-professional actors for your films, and was it challenging to do that?
Yeah, it was definitely challenging. I didn't start off thinking that I wanted non-professional actors, so I actually saw like a lot of professional veteran actresses. But I feel like because my film is set on Ubin, well, a lot of the actresses I auditioned, even though they may be very good, but they had like a certain like accent. You could tell that they are pretty bourgeois in a way that couldn't. I mean, not bourgeois, but like they wouldn't pass off as like a Ubin ama kind of thing. Yeah, and for sure it was very, very challenging working with my ama. I mean, she's such a force of nature. She is like. Yeah, but at the same time, it was very challenging working with her because she doesn't even read, so I couldn't give her a script. I had to record my entire story on an analog tape. I was like, Amma, just push play and rewind and don't touch anything else. Yeah. And even then, like, she wouldn't really remember her lines because, like, okay, she doesn't have electricity in the house, so much less TV, so she has really no concept of acting at all. So, then, with professional actors, they'll be like, oh, okay, you walk here to this mum, and then you stop, you say a line, and then you walk over there into the light, and you look out the window. I mean, all this is like impossible with her. So then it was just basically like just rolling to catch what I could catch, and just smatterings of the lines she could remember, and then basically piecing it all together in post. But the great thing about her, I felt that she had a lot of personality. So then that came out naturally, and during my process, it was like a bit of a two-way thing. Like usually you write a script, and then you give it to your actors, and they process, and think, and they research, and then they perform. But for her, it was very much two-way. It was kind of like, I told her the story, but then like based off of her, I changed the script to fit her as well, and like to imagine what lines she'll say. Yeah, so that was that. It was definitely a challenging process. Yeah, and also the girl is also non-professional, so then I had to converse with one in like my not great Chinese and the other in English, so it was quite difficult.
I think what also struck me, I suppose, in addition to maybe speech patterns, etc., is that I guess you can sense whether a person is a city person or in another kind of maybe a bit more bucolic or rural kind of environment. I think because of the way, because of time, and also the body, and how the body moves actually, and how comfortable she is actually just being in that space. So I thought that was really interesting. We're working with non-professional actors as well.
Yes, when I decided to make the film, I knew for sure that if I wanted to pull it off, I needed a real worker. There's really no way around it. So I looked around at various. I was volunteering for a period of time to find out more about the issue before I decided to make the film. And during this time when I was volunteering, I found out that there was a resting house in the middle of Little India for these sort of disenfranchised workers, where they would gather together. And the special thing is they would put up plays every 2 months or so, where so they would they would write their own plays, and so they put up this show, and I was there, and I saw Abu Hassan. He played a comic character. You know, something in Shakespeare, you have the guy that makes the side jokes, and he would always really hype it up and be this jester character. But I saw him and I thought, this guy is quite something special. So I decided to cast him. But for the film, I knew that I couldn't really, unlike Kirsten's film, I couldn't have somebody that had too much of a personality. So when Kirsten used Amar's personality, I had to sort of whittle it down to something much more basic and simple. All I wanted to show was a certain desire and someone acting upon that desire. So it was also a challenge because he was the jester and he had this personality. So that I would, have to coach him and do it again and again until, well, the light sort of beat it out of him before it could give me something I thought would really work for the film.
Yeah, before I open, I just want to also comment that I think you managed to achieve a lot from characters who are otherwise very impassive and stoic, So I thought that these are really the film's achievements. Very minuscule kind of acting, but I think that the effects were quite momentous. Okay, so I'm going to open it up to the floor. Just try to ask your questions loudly, I guess. Do they need mics? Maybe not. If you can project, maybe so much better. Okay? Any questions for filmmakers tonight? Yes, I think I'll take one from this lady first. Yes. Sorry, how long was the process of? The post-production. Okay.
Yeah, for me, after I shot the film, I couldn't look at it. I was mildly traumatized by the process because it was quite difficult. So I was like, okay, I need some break from the material. Then I was really mildly traumatized because it was apart from the acting, it was a very hard film to do because I had to rewrite the script the night before almost entirely because I lost 2 exterior locations just a few days before. And then after that you're just working off of instinct, you're making split-second decisions, and you don't have the time and luxury to think of the script what I thought my script was So then after doing it, I just put in my best, and then I needed that break. So I'm not sure if your post-production process counts in that break. But from the moment I started piecing it together to the final cut, I would say maybe 1 month for video cutting. For picture cut, and maybe another 2 weeks for the sound edit. Yeah, sound and music. Yeah, and then after that was just a couple of days for the grading. Yeah. And we did play around with the edit a lot, so then there was a lot of reshuffling of scenes as well to make it work. And we actually even took out a scene that we shot. Yeah, just to, because you have the raw and then you have the final, and it's just a matter of putting it together to see which works best.
Yeah.
It was, like Kirsten, after you shoot a film, you always need to take that break so you can look at the footage in a more objective manner. I took a break from it for quite some time. I left it for about a couple of months sitting on my drive, and it slowly became this weight that became heavier and heavier, and then I realized, yes, I need to deal with this thing, and finally I got down and I sat down to edit the thing. But when I first approached editing, actually the structure came quite complete, and it was almost self-evident. The hardest bits are just the little minute changes to catch from the actor, where do you put this certain look in here, just to make the audience think, oh, what is he thinking now? Or is he scared? Or is he questioning what's happening? That took the longest time. If I had to put a number to it, I would say I took 4 months to piece it together. Sound, picture, all that.
Okay, there's a question, I think, behind there first. The gentleman, yes.
So this is not specific for Abu Hassan, because he's actually a migrant worker in Singapore, right? How did it convince him to act for you, and how did it work out with the scheduling of his work and your production?
Okay, just repeat for those who might not hear. The question was, so Abu Hassan was actually a real migrant worker in Singapore, so you can tell us a bit about him. And the question was, how did you manage to get him out of, say, his schedule to act in your film?
Well, first, Abu Hassan is one of those workers who suffered an injury. Abu Hassan is one of those workers that suffered an injury and had been living in Singapore jobless for, I think, if I remember correctly, almost 2 years, while he was waiting for his injury claims to be settled. Now, during this time, as he's waiting for things to be settled, they're not allowed to work. So they're really basically caught in a limbo because they have to pay up front for any sort of injuries, and they're just waiting for money from the employer to come to him so that he can go home, basically. So for the past 2 years, he's sort of been out of work, and that's how I met him, through volunteering with TWC2 and at Bashram, which is the resting house I talked about just now. So there wasn't really a schedule that I had to work around. He was looking for work, I guess, and he was quite happy to be in the film. I mean, he was interested in acting, because I saw him in the play. He didn't expect the filming process to be quite so repetitive and difficult. But we made through it, and I think it was a good experience for both of us.
Okay, I'll take a question from there first. Yes? Okay, so first question to Kristen. How did you create that shot across the water? Which one? The first or? With the boat ride. Okay.
That was actually a very exciting shot that I had a lot of discussion with my producer about. Because obviously, I mean, like we used the Alexa camera, which cost, I don't know, it's a 50 to 100 more, like K. And I mean, we had school insurance, of course, but like, I knew I needed that shot in the film, so like after a lot of discussion, the producer was very, very uncomfortable, and he's not here today. Then it was just a matter of talking to the crew, and it so happens that Shi Jie is my gaffer and helped me to rig like the camera onto literally like a speedboat. Yeah, and it was actually quite, again, traumatizing because it started like, I mean, we only had like 2 hours in a certain day to film it because that was what the schedule allowed, and then it started pouring, and then oh my god, we already had the camera built on that like sampan speedboat thing, and then it was just a matter of, okay, do we do it or do we not do it? Then okay, you do it, but then you be extremely careful, and then so like I was sheltering my DP, actually not even with the umbrella, with a raincoat, and we're just huddling, and then because the boat couldn't take many people, so I had to rack focus. Rack focus is usually what the assistant camera does, which to make sure everything is in some focus. And then I had to eyeball it because we didn't even have a monitor. You know, so it's like, okay, that feels like 20 meters, that feels like 30 meters. And then so it's just like eyeballing the focus as my DP was like under the raincoat trying to get that shot. And thank you very much, Shi Jie, also for really.
So Shish's question will be seen in MOM. How did you research it? And I suppose another additional question, how do you film it there, or did you recreate?
Well, first we recreated MOM. There's no way we shot at MOM. Okay. Yes, with regards to the scene, who asked the question? Right, with regards to the scene, of course, I mean, I spoke with a number of workers who spoke about, their various experiences meeting with these officers. Some have been positive, some have been negative, right? But I feel like because of the large numbers of workers that I think need help, I just felt responsible to portray a certain experience of this worker. So I chose to, portray one in which the experience was negative. And often you find that when they say negative, it's more really just an impassive, like, we'll deal with it, don't worry, you go back kind of thing. And that's not very reassuring for somebody who really needs your help. And I really wanted to portray that sort of line of thought, that sort of, I guess the word is apathy, right? Well, I'm not sure, I don't know if I want to defend an MOM officer who has this attitude, but to see it from his perspective, he sees workers every day with all sorts of different problems. So sometimes it can also come across as sort of a disinterest, even though they might be really, really interested in helping the worker. But sometimes when you deal with it on a daily basis, it can also get very difficult. Of course, this is not something I deal with the film, but I thought about whether or not I should address it, and I decided not to. And I think that was the right decision, I hope. Hope that answers your question.
So you didn't go undercover as like maybe a migrant worker from China? Record the conversation.
That didn't work as well as it would.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting because I'm not sure there's a critique of Singaporean empathy in general, because bureaucracy is like that, right? Bureaucracy is faceless by nature, and even if there's someone with an actual face at a counter, he is supposed to be faceless. So yeah. Okay. I think there are some questions over here. I'll be back to you, David, but let's hear from that guy there.
Hi, Christine. I'd like to ask, what was the process when you were finding the location? I don't think the Ubin location was that easy to search for, right?
There was a process of finding the location, and it must not have been very easy to look for it.
Yeah, it wasn't at all easy, which leads to another layer of trauma, but I will stop. Yeah, because like, I'm not sure if you guys know about like the whole Ubin situation last year. I think there was quite a lot of news about the potential eviction of like Ubin residents from the place. I think it was in the news, like I mean that incident, and then so like I think they've been hounded a lot by media people as well. And then so when they saw us, people with camera, they were very, very wary. You know, like they kind of just like didn't like us very much at the get-go. And so it was really just a matter of slowly seducing them to agree. You know, I don't know how else to put it, but to really just show them that you're people with integrity, you're not going to like screw things up, you're not going to break a vase, you're going to be responsible. And yeah, and we just really went back a lot of times, like 4 times. Like the first time we bring fish, the second time we bring something to just, in some ways, because, yeah, yes, I don't know who amongst you. Yeah, but at the same time, it has to be some kind of bribe with integrity, like, you know, like. And then so after the 4th time, it was literally like, oh my god, we're students, and this, like, it was really like integrity with no dignity, is that? That's how I put it. And then finally, the guy's like, okay, I'll let you shoot, but only 4 days, you shoot like only for a few hours. And then like even when we were there, we couldn't like. I mean, when you're filming, it's very normal to usually like move the tables, move the set to fit the frame, but we couldn't touch a single thing. So then we just have to really work around like a lot of limitations. Yeah. Oh, and LTA. So I had before. Yeah, and in the early scripts there was actually exterior scenes, but also 3 days before the shoot, LTA on its own decided to like dig up this entire chunk of soil. And then so when I arrived on set, they was like, oh my god, what has just happened to my location? And then so it's just a matter of like keeping it loose, writing script on the spot, writing script in the head, and then just like winging it. Yeah.
Great. Let's take a question from the gentleman in white, and then I'll go back. Yes.
So I guess a bit to the introduction before you even started filming. So 2 parts to it. For example, refugees is not a very sexy topic. What inspired you? Oh, to really take this up. And from there, how was the research process to where you got in the film?
Okay. You want to take that first about migrant workers in your research?
Sure. I was supposed to make a thesis film for graduation, and I come across a number of articles that I read online about these huge numbers of. Hello. Yes. So where was I? I come across a number of articles online about these numbers of workers, rather alarming numbers of workers that need help. and I wanted to find out more about the issue. So I volunteered with an NGO that runs a soup kitchen for these workers. And I got to know some of these men, and as I listened more and more to their stories, I realized that, this is something that I need to tell. Like, it seemed very urgent. Like, it felt to me like there was something growing. So I really felt the need to, write a script, put a story, cast a real worker, and then put it on the screen for a group of people who exist in large numbers in Singapore but are largely very underrepresented. So that's really why I did the film.
Yeah, so regarding sexiness and refugees. Yeah, so regarding sexiness and refugees, I think for me, sexy is not the story, but sexy is how you tell the story. So even if the subject is pretty dry, but in some ways it's how you tell it that brings it to life. So I feel like, so in some ways, like when I first read the news in the papers, I didn't think it was actually very widely reported in Singapore, but online, like overseas, like I actually saw it. I really felt like, oh, cozy. Where was I? Oh yeah, I read it online. Then I was like pretty annoyed by the news. I was actually quite upset, to be honest. And then so I feel like if I felt this way, then surely there would be a lot of people who feel this way. And then so then it was just a matter of broaching that issue. But I feel for me, like every time I watch a film, read a book, like I don't like to smell the agenda. I don't like to feel like, oh, this is a film about something, or this is a gay film, or this is like a film about whatever. So then it's a matter of sort of hiding the issue and the agenda to make it as subtle as possible. But for me, I'm sure our process is different, but to tell it through the characters and the plot so that you start to feel for them, I think that's the first step. And then you can sort of, and once you're in emotionally, then you're in intellectually. That's what I think, maybe.
Great. Okay. Because I think you're telling the story in terms of the relationships, right? Or also sometimes the lack of relationships in your film. David, finally.
Okay, two questions. First one is, why put some clothes on the TV screen? And the second question is more to for both, and that is, just curious, what was the shooting ratio? How much did you shoot to end up with the final part? Perhaps you can elaborate on what has been the editing process of PC.
Okay, so So for Shu Xie, the question was, what's the shooting ratio, right? Did you leave out certain scenes, and why did you decide to make these choices?
First, no scene.
Oh. It's you, it's not the mic.
Firstly, no. This is going to work. Firstly, no scenes were left. Okay, firstly, no scenes were left out of the film. The shooting ratio was something quite, because I would do very many repeated takes just to get something real. Abu Hassan, he was quite excited to do the role, so he would bring his energy. But I always sensed that, like I said before, I didn't want a personality to come out across the film because I didn't want it to sort of color the
I'm sorry, what did you do to my mic, Shu Jie? Okay, I'll just give you two, just in case. Insurance.
Oh, yeah, I did. So the shooting ratio was, quite high because I did a lot of takes. And I lost my train of thought completely. Right. It's just a software.
Yeah, maybe I hope because you look like you're gonna do the maracas.
Yes, well, I did very many takes just so I to get to a real place with Abok-san because he really wanted to perform. Like he was a jester, he played the comic role, he really wanted to act. But that was the opposite of what I really wanted. So it was a process of getting him to understand that. His English wasn't that great, although you see in the film he can speak the English, but to communicate is something entirely different. Like you have to communicate what you want, interior, in terms of the interior and the exterior. It's a different ballgame. So although his English was functional, there was still a large communication barrier. So it took time to get to that place. But I think once he understood, he knew what to do. So I hope that answers your question.
What's the longest number of takes?
What's the longest number of takes? Highest number of takes?
That would be the scene at when he's talking to the faceless receptionist. I think we did that about 26 or 27 times. Yes.
Well, for someone who's supposedly sympathetic to foreign workers, you kind of quite hard, huh?
Well, he wanted to work, so I put him to work.
They did it, yes, of course. Okay, there was a question, right? Why did you put Sanko's Singapore Panda?
Yeah, I think I can post-rationalize it and say like it's because its themes and film also deals with like foreigners and also like maybe xenophobia. But like the most honest answer is that she's a friend and there'll be no copyright infringement. But then I felt like thematically like both films sort of can resonate against each other and therefore like of all the filmmakers I know hers would be the obvious choice. And I really did like her film too. So. And in terms of shooting ratio, I think some takes, like once I was happy with it, it was just like a one take thing. But I think on average, maybe it would be like 7 to 1. Yeah. Yes. Because of my... the scenes that were removed was a scene actually that sort of built the relationship more before the girl ended up at the table with the granny. Like there was a scene before that, that the girl actually tried to run away and the grandmother was trying to go after her. But then when I saw it in the cutting room, I was really very unhappy with the location because it was just some random place I found and not my original one. So then for the wholeness of the entire film, I just thought I should just take out anything that was like weak, even if it was in terms of aesthetics. Yeah.
Wow, quite a few questions. Okay, we should we should wrap up soon, but I will take like these final 3 questions. Okay, let's go with the gentleman there first. Yes, yeah, just one question. Yes. Yes.
I have some question to make. I moved to film because of work.
Oh, okay.
But I read a lot about film features and everything.
Right.
And so these are like broad questions.
One can or not? Choose the most important one.
Yeah, I think it's for both
Okay.
to respond to.
Okay.
So how did you create your own lexicon that allowed for co-negotiation between like the audience, how the audience would see things, how the filmmakers would see things, and the stat boards, like the land transport authority, like how did you figure that out?
Okay, it's a very broad question to ask. How do you create that lexicon of communication? So, do you have a maybe more specific one? Very short.
Between you and for example, the actor, the artist. So like Singlish isn't English, right? It's a symbolic language, borrowing English words, but using the grammar of local. I mean, that's what I think it is.
Yep.
But how did you try to communicate and create that vocabulary with that person?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a kind of working language with the actors, is it?
Yes.
Okay. So hang on there. Okay. So let's hear from the rest, and if just to make sure you don't repeat questions. Any other questions? Okay. Let's hear from this guy, and then we'll get to the ones at the back. Yes.
I just have one question for Shi Jie.
Mm.
how the short film actually ended.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any idea, Iman, how the short film should originally ended?
Okay, so a question for Chair. Any other questions? That gentleman at the back there? Yes. Yes.
So with the first movie, as soon as it finished, like I thought there was not enough time for me to get out of it and get to the second one. But my question was, is there going to be a sequel? Or
to his film?
yes, yes.
Okay.
Do you think that
Okay.
it warrants, a full feature?
Right. So I think those two questions are kind of related, yeah? Okay, great. Any other questions? Okay, this lady and then after that, Jeremy.
As well, the nurse, why do you choose to portray her that way, in offering the free medical services to the migrant workers?
Why do you choose to portray the nurse that way? Okay. Final question, Jeremy. Okay. Are there more burning questions? Maybe you ask them yourself, okay? After the whole thing. You don't want to hold people back. Okay, Jeremy, hopefully a question for Kristen. Okay, great.
There is a question.
Yes.
I remember the grandmother said that she would try to protect the girl or something. So, in the end, she did nothing but just watch the policeman take her away. Was there an alternative ending that you wrote? Instead of what we saw?
Wow, you all like alternative endings. So many questions on alternative endings. If you don't like the ending, it's okay. You can say it. You have to ask the filmmakers for another ending. You feel it's too irresolute. You need catharsis. You need to see justice done or something. You can imagine in your head. You don't. Yeah, but anyway, I leave it to the filmmakers to see. You want to take some of these questions, okay? So, working vocabulary, your past, and also that alternate ending.
Yeah, I feel like maybe your question in some ways is a very theoretical one. Because for me, it's like, Singlish is not symbolic, it is very realistic. So then it wasn't matter, what kind of language should I communicate? I mean, the Ama speaks Chinese, so I speak Chinese to her. The girl speaks English, so I speak English to her, and that's that. Yeah.
But as a filmmaker, right, what are your experiences of feeling fraudulent? You said you couldn't look back at your film, or your work, or do you ever feel fraudulent, or like?
Okay, in the interest of time, we'll hold that, yeah. You can see them personally about that. Okay, so alternate endings?
Yeah. Actually, I did have an alternate ending where the Amma helped the girl, but then I feel like we have to keep it realistic to the situation, and I just felt like it would actually be more powerful this way, because I was just thinking, if I called the police 20 minutes ago, half an hour ago, would I actually dare to even help the person? And actually, I feel like in this way it's actually more heartbreaking, because it's more a reflection of the truth of what it will be. Yeah. Yeah, and then also I thought to myself, then it sort of highlights the idea of morality versus legality. Like, why is it that she's trying to do something right but feels wrong at the end? Yeah.
So you had an Ubin Schindler's List kind of ending. No, but okay. Xie.
I didn't have alternate ending. No.